Well, to introduce the sermon this morning, I need to go back to about 20 years ago to when Tyra and I were first married. Woo! When you're a preacher, you just always look like a preacher, it seems, even on your wedding day. But in the early months of our marriage, I learned something fairly quickly that actually many men discover in the first months of marriage. And it is this. Many of the things we say as husbands to our wives are wrong. And it's not because our wives are hypersensitive, it's just because many of the things that we say to our wives are wrong. We had been married just literally weeks, and I was in the bathroom shaving one morning, and Tyra walked in, and she did that thing that I've discovered that women do sometimes to mirrors. She did what owls do. She walked in and she turned around and she flung her head around 180 degrees to check out her back and her behind. I've never done that once in my life. I don't know what my back looks like, and I really don't care what it looks like. But Tyra walked in and she did this owl thing so she could look at her back, and then she asked the question. She asked the question that is designed to be a husband killer. And the question of the day was, are these pants too tight? Well, I was young and stupid. I didn't know that there's only one way to answer that question. And so I thought I'd be truthful. And I said 3 little words. 3 little words. Maybe a little. 3 little words took a totally great Saturday morning and completely changed it. Totally smashed it. 3 little words, maybe a little, ended up creating a lot of tears. In fact, Tyra almost cried at one point. It was bad. And I started to learn that day what I know for sure 20 years later, and that is this. It only takes a couple of words to send a really good day or a really good relationship in a direction that you don't want it to go. It only takes a few words. How many of you husbands know exactly what I'm talking about? Don't raise your hand. That's what I want you to learn from church. Don't tell the truth. But I learned very quickly that day that maybe a little in our relationship could change things. But it's also true, I think, in all of our close relationships. You remember back when you were single and you moved in with one of your close friends, you thought life was going to be like one great big slumber party? It's just going to be great. And one morning you walked in wearing this new outfit you had just bought, and you say to your roommate, well, what do you think? And she looks at you and smiles and says, looks real nice, Grandma. It just takes a few words. And the relationship changes. It takes you to a place where you really don't want to go. And some of you guys are thinking, well, men are not like that because we're always mean to each other. I mean, guys can walk up to each other and say, what's up, loser? I mean, women don't do that. But guys, let's be honest. We know that if a certain thing is said at a certain moment with just the right intensity, we can be the biggest babies of them all. Just a couple of words is all it takes, and a relationship can change instantly. Whoever wrote this phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? You know that little phrase? Whoever wrote that, to use a biblical word, is an idiot. Because you and I know it just takes a couple of careless words, and it really hurts. I can think back over some of the things that have happened to me. Some of the things that have been said to me and how wounded they have left me. When I'm working with couples, and I listen to how fractured and how broken their marriage has become as they sit in my office, I realize that a lot of the careless words that have been spoken over the years is what really have brought them to this point. And you know, in your work environment, sometimes the words your boss has to say to you or about you will determine whether or not you really like the job or you don't. Why are words so fragile? And why are words sometimes so hurtful? Well, some of you know how much I really enjoy the book of Proverbs, and I'll preach from that every now and then. Once I was reading in Proverbs, I came across a verse that I think really describes what God thinks about words. I think this verse sums that up perfectly. It also explains why it seems to take so few words to hurt, and yet it seems to take so many to heal. Now, if you're new to church, or you're new to this God thing, or you're just kind of checking out the whole church thing, this is going to speak some truth, and I think this will be very meaningful to you as well. It's found in Proverbs 12:18. It's what Lauren read a few moments ago. Proverbs 12:18 says this. It says, reckless words stab or pierce like a sword. Reckless words stab like a sword. Think about that for just a minute. Because the Bible is comparing the act of being stabbed, not with a knife, but with a sword, to reckless words coming our way. That's an amazing analogy. Reckless words said at the right time, at the right moment, can stab like a sword. Now here's the deal. If you were on the way here this morning, heaven forbid, if you were stabbed, you would literally stop everything you were doing and you would deal with that wound. Wouldn't matter what was on your iPad or what was on your smartphone or what was on your calendar, you would stop and you would deal with the fact that you'd just been stabbed. And here's why. That would be an event for you. And I dare say that it would be an event that you would never, ever forget. And the Bible says the same thing about reckless or careless words coming our way. I have a dear friend of mine, one of my closest guy friends. He's another minister. And he shared this story with me once, and I'll never forget it. His mother died when he was 9 years old. And sometime later, he was at his uncle's house, and I don't know what happened, but he ended up making some mess playing in his uncle's family room. The uncle came in and saw the mess and absolutely went crazy. He just went nuts. My friend said, remember, he's 9 years old. He started to cry and he ran out of the house. His uncle chased after him. He chased him down. He grabbed him by the arms. He spun him around, looked him square in the eyes, and this is what he said. He said, just because your mother died doesn't mean you can cry about every little thing. Reckless words stab like a sword. This friend of mine said, when he looks back on being 9 years old, he doesn't remember what Little League team he played on. He doesn't remember if they took a vacation or where they went. He doesn't remember anything he got for Christmas, but he remembers that day. He remembers where he was sitting. He remembers the mess he made. He remembered where he was chased out of the house. He can take you back to the exact spot where his uncle caught him. He remembers him spinning him around, and he remembers thinking that he looked really, really big, and he remembers every single word that came out of his mouth. Why? Because reckless words stab like a sword. And that's an event. That day was an event. And you and I remember events, especially the hurtful ones. Some of you sitting here this morning know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of us guys would say, oh, I don't think about that anymore. That's back when I was a kid. It really doesn't matter. But if you were to think back, you could remember a time when maybe your dad or maybe your group of guys said something to you. Maybe it was on an athletic field about your ability or lack thereof. And you remember where you were standing, you remember what they said, and you remember how that felt to you. And some of you women, I know that you can think back to a time when you were a kid. And you remember what that day was like. You remember what those girls said and where you were standing in the hallway when they said it. When I started in ministry years ago, I was a youth minister. Did that for my first several years. And I'd always be amazed at how girls could tell you to the letter, to the word, what their dad or what a boy or what a group of girls had said about them, especially about the way they looked. And far too often, what had been said, those stabbing words, have far more to do today with what they see in the mirror than does the mirror itself. And they remember. Because those words were like stabbing, life-altering events, life-shaping, life-changing, not for the better, events for them. Reckless words stab like a sword, and we remember the events. Some of you might be thinking, I don't have to think back to when I was a kid because it happened on the way over here this morning. Or it happened on the job. Maybe you got passed over for a promotion, or your boss let you know carelessly and quickly in front of others why. Some of us don't have to look back that far to know that reckless words stab like a sword. It could be an event. And you go, I don't know what else I'll remember about 2015, but I'll remember when that happened. Because reckless words are just huge. They stab like a sword. And here's the catch. If we know that's true for us, then we've got to remember with great intention what's happening to those closest to us as well. Those people we work with. Those people at your house. Or with your kids, or with the person you're dating. It's the same thing. Reckless words stab like a sword. I don't know about you, but sometimes I think I'm not all that powerful. I mean, my words can't have that much power. Come on. And yet they do. Reckless words stab like a sword. We have to remember with great intention what words like that can do to the people around us. But there is some good news in this sermon. Here's the good news. This is the great part. That passage says, reckless words stab like a sword, comma. Thank goodness there's not a period. But wise words lead to healing. Wise words lead to healing. I want you to think about God's economy on this a minute. It's reckless words that stab like a sword. But God can use the same thing that hurts us to heal those around us. That thing we've used to hurt our spouse or our friends or our kids, God can use that very same thing, words, to heal them. You see, God has designed us human beings in a rather amazing way. If we get cut, we heal back. It's amazing when you think about it. But it's nowhere near as amazing to me as the fact that words can heal the very wounded parts of us. And I dare say, the people you love the most, or the people you work with, if something happened to them physically, you would do everything within your power to help them get well, wouldn't you? If they were in an accident, if they had hurt themselves, if they were sick, you would do whatever you could. Well, the same thing needs to hold true with our words. Because everybody around us is wounded to some degree. And it's up to you and me. It may be your words or my words that brings them healing. And here's the deal. Don't miss this, because this is where it all makes sense to me. Why is it that when I get hurt, it only takes 2 or 3 words to do the damage? Why does it take so few words to hurt and then so many to help? It's because reckless words stab like a sword. That's an event. But wise words bring healing. And that, my friends, is a process. And process can be slow, because process takes time. You and I don't like to give things a lot of time. We're living in an age where slow is not good. I mean, it's 2015. We live with techno-stress. We stand by the microwave waiting for the popcorn saying, come on, come on, come on. I read the other day that now they have Pop-Tarts that can heat up in only 3 seconds. Why? Because we don't have 10. You know how it is. That little hourglass comes up on your computer that says, hold on a minute, I'm thinking. And we're like, oh man, come on, I've got to upgrade. We're the generation that created DVRs and TiVos so we don't have to watch commercials. Because you and I, we don't like process. We like event. It's got to be quick. Guys, that's why it just doesn't work. When we said something we wish we hadn't said, and so we come up with the big event type of apology. Roses. You think that's going to make everything just fine. And she says, thank you for the flowers, but I'm still wounded. It's going to take time. It's going to take longer than this. But ladies, it's the same thing for you. I mean, you say something out of frustration to your husband, and then a little while later you come back and you say, I said I was sorry. We say that a lot, don't we? I said I was sorry. But you see, healing is a process. I know I messed up. I know I was too aggressive at that meeting. I'm sorry. And you say, okay. But they can still see that you're wounded. Healing is a process. We have to gain the trust back. We have to be intentional about saying the right things. We don't like process, but it's amazing. It is amazing to watch how process works. Some of you in this room know this is true, because people have said things to you that have been hurtful, and then someone came up to you and spoke a word of comfort or a word of reassurance and given you a different message. And it's almost like God had placed that person in your life to speak something different to you. Sometimes it's your spouse or partner. And even when you've been arguing with each other, even when you feel like you're going to win the award for the couple with the most arguments in a year, you look back and realize that your spouse never attacked you personally. And over time, you begin to feel that you're starting to heal from those wounds. I know some of you are thinking, but I've been wounded for a long, long time. And Bruce, I understand this intellectually, but I just can't get over it. It still hurts because there hasn't been healing. Some of you have relationships with people, and they're going, why don't they get it? I've told them time and time again. Well, they're not healed yet. And God may want to use your words to help them heal. Now, how do we do that? Well, I think the answer to that is in the same passage. If reckless words stab like a sword, and I know this is overly simplistic, then we've got to be careful. And I think the best way for us to be careful is to be slow. The Bible also says, be slow to speak. Because when we get fast, when we end up just reacting instead of responding, and we're saying things because we're all filled with emotion, that's when the stabbing starts happening. So sometimes with our words, we've got to learn to be slow. You know, I've become convinced with every fiber of my being that many a marriage could have been saved, many a relationship maintained, many a friendship salvaged, many a working relationship can continue to go smoothly if we had one thing that we just don't have. If we had the one thing that every radio station in America has, and that is a 7-second delay. You know what I'm talking about? They have 7 seconds to push a button and stop something offensive from going out over the airwaves. How would it be? Think about this. If we had a 7-second delay in our lives, can you imagine that? Honey, that makes you really look heavy. Pop! 7-second delay. You look beautiful in that, honey. Think about that. Wouldn't that be great? We don't have that, but somehow we've got to learn how to incorporate that. We've got to learn how to be slow before we speak. But notice I said slow and not silent. Because some of you are thinking, I'm slow all right, because when I get mad, I don't say anything. Well, I said slow and not silent because some of us have had parents or someone else in our life who never communicate to us. You talk about being stabbed. Sometimes nothing is more stabbing than just silence. Giving someone the silent treatment. But we crave the idea of just hearing something from them. We have to learn to be slow, but we can't be silent. And we have to be smart because wise words lead to healing. One other thing is this, and I'm going to end in just a minute. Empty words don't heal anything. You know, the Bible also says in Proverbs that flattery is evil. We know that's true because you've all been given lip service before. You've been in a situation where someone's talking to you and you're thinking, I don't believe a word that you're saying. We have to be wise. We have to use the right words. It's the right words that lead to healing. It's the right words that can heal one's woundedness. So my advice is this. Learn to ask a lot of questions. Find out where one's woundedness is. And if you still don't get the answer, I think here's a good way to detect it. This is what I've learned. If you've ever been in a conversation with somebody that you're really close to and you're speaking about a topic and all of a sudden their reaction doesn't match the situation, and you realize every time I bring up money, they just go nuts. I don't know what it is, but I can't say anything right. Or anytime I say something about her clothes, she just goes crazy. I can't get it right. If their reaction doesn't match the situation, they have just let you in on their woundedness. And you learn that when he was young, his father was so obsessed with money and acted like they weren't going to have enough at the end of the month. And therefore he's sensitive about the whole money thing. That's his woundedness. Or when she was young, everybody used to make fun of the way that she dressed, of her appearance, of her clothes. That's her woundedness. In effect, what they're saying is this: this is where I need you. This is where I need you to be sensitive. This is where I need you to be brave. This is where I need you to care more about me than about yourself. And when you can do that, that's when rich healing begins to take place. So what happens when we're slow and when we're wise with our words? You want to know the kind of words we can use? Guys, listen carefully, because this is really important. It's really complicated, so get your pen out. You might want to write this down. Use these two words. Learn how to use these two words. Thank you. Okay? You got that? Write that down. Thank you. It sounds like it's something you'd say to your kids, doesn't it? Say thank you. But I said this once to Fiona, our 8-year-old granddaughter, and she looked at me and she said, "You didn't say it with manners." A little 8-year-old theologian. I acknowledge you. I saw that thing in you. Thank you. There are people here at Imagine Church, people here this morning who just do this so well, because some of you are saying thank you all the time to Jennifer, to Cahill, to Tyron, and to me for what we do for the church as the staff, for the praise band, for our setup people, our tech guys. Do you know what that does for us? It honors us. It's amazing how powerful two little words, thank you, can be. We forget to say that sometimes. Just say thank you. Another one, husbands. I don't know why I'm speaking to the men so much today, but what if we said to our wives, or men, what if we said this to the woman in our life? You're beautiful. There's not a woman in this room who doesn't crave hearing that from the man in her life. That's what I've been told. You're beautiful. Maybe on the way home today, and your girlfriend or your wife or your fiance might say, "I'm just not into words like that." But they're all into words like that. Take my word for it when it comes to this. Dads, what happened if we decided every morning and every night I'm going to tell her that she's beautiful? Here's what I believe. I've done a lot of counseling with people over my life. If she hears it from you, there won't be the tendency to want to hear it from somebody else. Okay? You're beautiful. Those words are important. They're healing words. And the next one, we can get real intentional about this. I love, fill in the blank, about you. You know, there's so many great characteristics about the people around us, but we forget to tell them, I love this about you. I love that about you. I love what you bring to this organization. I love what you do for our family. I love the fact that since I moved here, you always kept up with me. I love that you invited me to church. I love that about you. People are made to crave words of value. I love you. And it leads to something amazing called healing. So let me ask you, and we're going to close. Who is the person that God has put in your head or in your heart as we've been talking about this? Who is it in your life needs to hear your words? Who is that person? Is it somebody at work? Maybe some of the marriages here, maybe your marriage is going in a direction you don't want it to go. This is the greatest way to get it back. Some of you parents, maybe the only reason you're here, so you can come in here and take a deep breath and get away from your kids for an hour and then go back and talk to your kids. And say, no matter how busy we are, no matter what's going on, that I really am going to be careful with my words. So who's that person? Who's that friend? Who is the person who needs your words so desperately? What I want to do as we end this is I want to pray for you, and I want to have us pray together for that person. That you'll have the courage to speak those words, the wise words. We're going to pray for them as well, okay? So let me pray for you. Let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for the men and women who are here this morning. Because they know you're real. They know you're with them right now. And God, I pray that you would just completely and totally honor their time here today. That this wouldn't just be another Sunday. That they wouldn't just walk away the same, but that they would walk away as changed people. That they'd walk away with someone on their hearts. That they'd walk away thinking, I'm going to speak those words. That they would have an excited respect for how you can use words, oh God, to bring healing in the right situation with that one person. And God, I pray for the recipients of our words. That they would be receptive. That they would hear. and that you might speed the healing process and give us the hope that we're heading in the right direction. And God, I pray all of this in Jesus' name.